In my experience, the biggest impact on whether I find a compelling composition out in the field is given by the amount of creativity I have on that particular day. And there are days when we do so hard to get creative, but there are also such when we experience something like, a creative explosion if you want. And what if I would tell you that there exist ways to get control over the amount of creativity every day? Let's have a look how we can influence our creative abilities. Ah, my friends, very nice to see you. There's a reason for the hat. It is so cold here in my house, it's unbelievable. I'm getting a new heating at the moment. Since the middle of September actually. They removed my old heating and then they saw that there was one part broken and what should I say? Now the shipping is delayed for this one part and it was okay the first time, but meanwhile it got quite cold here. However, due to that freezing experience, if you want, I found out that this coldness had a massive impact on my creativity. But before you go now and turn off your heating, don't do that, because to be honest, it had a negative effect on my creativity. There are ways to increase, but also to decrease our creativity. And I want to go through some things you can do at home, on your workplace, on your job, but also out on location to get more creative. On the one hand, but also to avoid creative blocks as much as this is possible. But first of all, it is quite important to understand how creativity works actually. And to understand that, we have to go back a little bit to a time when we were hunters and collectors. It was a time when we had to risk our lives just to get dinner. Stone Age men had just one important goal. They wanted to survive. And they put all their energy into achieving that one goal. And when we break it down, they had active phases when they stood in front of a dangerous animal, for instance, weakened just with a stone or so, and they had passive phases when they returned home to their caves afterwards and thought about what could they do better to protect themselves better against dangerous animals next time. So they broke stones to make them more sharp and more dangerous. They invented spears and so on. They understood that it is more safe when they have a fireplace in front of their caves because the animals fear against that. And all those things we have all learned from history at school. When we break it down, they were fighting to survive in their active phases and they were creative in their passive phases. And now today it is not all too different. I mean, making dinner is much more safe meanwhile. We have developed. But we still have these active and passive phases, right? And for me it always felt like the more comfortable I feel, the more potential I have afterwards to get creative. And I'm not a doctor or so, but I stumbled over something really interesting on Wikipedia. And creativity has indeed to do with the dopamines. Alice Flaherty, she describes that the dopamine is an essential element for getting into a creative drive. And dopamine is one of these endorphins. So yes, when we feel comfortable, we get more endorphins and we have indeed more potential to get creative. And stress hormones instead kill the endorphins. It is an interesting article. I will link it down in the description just if anyone is interested in details here. So what has this to do now with us as photographers and artists? As already mentioned, today we still have active and passive phases. When we work in our job, we are in an active phase where we produce stress hormones, which kills our creativity. It is all about doing everything to survive, to earn money actually. And when we return home afterwards to our houses, to our apartments, whatever, not to caves anymore or something like that, we get into a passive phase. Endorphins are produced which allow us to get creative. The only difference to Stone Age men is the phases where Stone Age men got pumped full with stress hormones. These phases were intensive too, but quite short. They didn't fight with saber-toothed tigers all day long. But today for us, the stress often starts already early in the morning, and there are days when we feel lucky when it goes away straight before we go to bed in the late night. So the passive phases are simply missing so often today, or let's say the balance between active and passive phases is not all too healthy today for most of us. Today our goal is still to survive, of course, but I think this goal has got quite self-evident already. We don't have to be all too creative anymore just to survive. And so surviving is not longer that thing we would engage all day long. Today, as fine art photographers, we are more interested in getting that one amazing photograph, a portfolio shot, a masterpiece. We're more interested in getting creative therefore. And to achieve that, when we boil it down now, endorphins are our friends and stress hormones are our enemies. Well, now we know that endorphins boost our creativity and stress hormones kill our creativity. How can we use that? What can we do in our daily lives? There are even many things actually. Here's just a couple of things which helped me really massively for getting creative over the past years. First of all, I turn off my phone. Not all the time, of course. I need to be reachable for my clients, but I allow myself to turn my phone off when I'm enjoying short relaxing phases during the day maybe. Don't trust me here, just try it out by yourself. I do this multiple times a day and it is such a big difference. Not only out on location, also when I'm at home, maybe in lunchtime or at your job. We don't need to get creative out on location only. We need to get creative already in our planning, or maybe also when we process our image from our last photo day. Getting creative out on location is important, of course, and I will talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let me show you some things that help me massively to get more creative at home. And one thing I'm really happy about is I have a Finnish sauna in my house. And yeah, I mean, it's healthy, it's refreshing, but it also boosts my creativity. It is simply, so enjoyable, so relaxing. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that there are endorphins produced when I'm sweating there. And I do this continuously since I was a little boy actually, once a week minimum, all year long, also in summer. And on colder winter days, often twice a week. Yeah, and especially at the moment with my heating situation, it is even more enjoyable than usually. I mean, you could also have a warm bath instead or so. I think it would have maybe a similar effect on your creativity. What I like to do is sometimes I turn on relaxing music, but I found out that it is even better for my personal creativity when I turn the music off. I'm not disturbed by anything. My phone is off as well. And oh man, in this little room where I burn some really great ideas. Yeah, it's my little hot creative room if you want. And I often got ideas about what to photograph when I'm just lying in there in the heat. But I also had some great business ideas for my company. I personally don't want to miss it ever. It's truly so fantastic. And again, I'm sure it would also work with the hot bath if you don't have the possibility to have your own Finnish sauna in your home. Also, sports can be quite useful to get more creative. I did a lot of running and mountain biking over so many years before I had my knee injury, and it is really when you are running slow, for instance, so that it is not all the exhausting, you get in a kind of alpha phase, and now guess, endorphins are produced, we get creative. Also with sports, I had so many creative ideas, and I hope my knee will allow me to start with running again soon. I will try it over the next week, so fingers crossed here. Landscape photography itself, that's interesting. Landscape photography is fantastic to produce endorphins through. I think even it is that what produces most endorphins for me. Yeah, just felt, I mean, I didn't measure it or so, but it is different because there's one important thing to be considered. We need already to be creative to do landscape photography. That's not the case for running, for instance. I just need to run to be able to run. There is no creativity necessary to run. Same with the sauna. I just have to turn it on. and to lie into the heat, there is no creativity necessary. But for landscape photography, we need already a minimum amount of creativity to get started. I need to know where I go with my camera. When I go out for photography, I need to find a composition, and therefore I need to be creative. So if I want to do landscape photography with zero creativity to get more creative, it is like, the cat would bite into its own tail actually. Landscape photography can lead to amazing happiness. I get pumped full with endorphins when I'm out with my camera, but with landscape photography, I need at least a small amount of endorphins to produce endorphins, if this makes sense. But there are anyway things you can do out on location to avoid creative blocks, to find fantastic compositions. But before we talk about that, my friends, if you like this video, please give me a thumb up. It helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it helps also other photographers out there to find this video better on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Getting creative at home is quite easy, but what if we're out on location with our camera? As already mentioned, landscape photography itself helps already massively to boost creativity. And that's definitely a big advantage for landscape photographers, obviously. But there are things that could block our creativity when we are out on location. And one important thing for me here is comfortableness. Whenever I try to get connected with the scene, whenever I work on a composition, I have to consider a lot of things. I really need 100% of my creative capacity here. I want to convey my story, I want my image to say anything, and I want a composition that simply works. So what I do is I try to bring myself into a situation that my photography doesn't get interrupted by anything that is annoying me, that's killing my creativity finally. And let's give me some examples here. When I'm out working on, let's say, a more complex composition, and I feel to get hungry, thirsty, tired, or cold maybe, it could happen, and I don't think my composition's to the end, because I don't feel comfortable enough. I do not use my full potential then, and ultimately I don't get the best possible result out. But the good news is, most of these things are quite easy to solve. I always take something to drink with me. In autumn and winter, a bottle of tea, a cereal bar is always in my backpack, just for an emergency case of getting hungry or so. I mean, it might sound weird, but it is really a big difference, because when I'm not 100% happy with my composition, and I know it would maybe take more 30 minutes or so, or even longer, to get it on point, when I'm hungry, it is so much harder to overcome these additional 30 minutes out in the cold maybe. And that you don't get tired, you could take coffee with you, of course, but what I do is I always have some of these coffee beans, Airmen Beans with me. They don't take a lot of space in my backpack. I even keep them in my backpack, so I always have a little bit of caffeine with me just for staying awake. They are really useful because I don't have to think about coffee when I go out. I will put you a link down in the description so that you can check out them by yourself, and I'm not sure if they are available in every country, but I'm sure you will find anything comparable or something like that in that case. Gloves are a good idea as well. I use photography gloves from Wellerat. I mentioned them in one of my recent videos. They are really cool. You can flip the finger caps away so that you can get the fingers out, so you have full control over your camera without any compromises. And your fingers don't get cold anymore, and you don't have to interrupt your composition. By the way, interrupting a composition, just that you get the right idea for that, this doesn't mean that I think, oh, now I will break the composition or something like that. No, it is more like I'm not 100% happy with the composition maybe, and I'm just not willing in thinking deeper into it because it feels uncomfortable. It's more something like that. And we all do that when we come in uncomfortable situations. So it's really a good idea to avoid all the situations like that. I also have a warm hat with me all the time, and in this case I use it right now. I always have it in my backpack, also in summer by the way. In the case that this sounds weird, in the mountains, in high areas, it is often windy and it could get quite cold there. And having a warm hat with me allows me simply not to get distracted by getting cold. I simply want to be focused 100% on my composition, nothing everything else. I mean, it's obvious. Guess what happens when you get hungry, thirsty, tired, cold or so? Yeah, we produce stress hormones. And stress hormones kill endorphins. It's quite interesting how much impact endorphins have on our creativity, isn't it? It's really amazing. And another really important thing, that we get into a creative flow, and that there is nothing that breaks that flow. You know, there exists an analytic and a creative side of our brain, and that we get our creative side activated, we need to get the stress hormones down, and we need to get the endorphins up, and we need to stop thinking analytically, because this would stop our creative flow. And I made already a video about that. I will link it up there for you. Oh, that's so good. Well, now we know how to get creative and also how to avoid creative blocks out on location. But what if we anyway get caught by a creative block? So first of all, there are situations where it looks obvious for us that we were already running into a creative block. Just a quick example. As I was to do scanning last time with my van, I had an emergency case in my company for some days. So I photographed during the days and I worked during the nights. I didn't sleep much there. I mean, don't get me wrong here, I really enjoyed photographing there. And I got also some photographs I'm really more than happy about. But it was so hard, and I had to fight with the huge amounts of stress hormones. It gets really difficult to concentrate when you're totally tired. And in a situation like that, I think it is all about the mindset actually. You could either capitulate and accept that you have a creative block already, or what I do is, at least in the very first step, simply ignore that. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely not a good idea to ignore that for a longer period or so, no doubt about that, but it works fantastically for me to do that just for some days or so. I know this must sound totally weird now, but as soon as I start to engage with the possibility of having a block, I slide much easier into one. And I was really able to avoid that in Tuscany. So most importantly, don't panic, never. That would just lead to even more stress hormones. Just go out for photography and enjoy the moment. But of course, there is no way to totally avoid a creative block. Sometimes we get caught by one. And again, I don't have heating in the moment, and it is so cold in here. And it isn't warmer outside, of course. It starts really also to get moisture already here inside because of the missing warmth. It is uncomfortable. My heating room is exactly below my office here. So there were days. What should I say? I've recorded that for you, just listen. I mean, the noise was not every day and not all day long, of course. It was anyway difficult to concentrate up here. But the coldness is definitely the biggest issue. I mean, it would not be any problem for a couple of days, but when it lasts for multiple weeks, it gets really tough to get creative. And I think in a situation like that, when there's anything pushing your stress hormones up or your endorphins down for longer, I think there comes the point when it is better to accept that it is how it is. At the moment, I don't try to get extremely creative with violence. Doesn't make sense. I accept that I get blocked by a situation I can't change. The most important thing in a situation like that is to know it will get over. So I'm using this time for a creative break. A creative break can really help you, even to boost your creativity in the end. After a creative break, you could even return more creative than you have ever been before. So it's really a good idea to go for a creative break from time to time, especially when it's escalating or when the circumstances will last longer, or when you get a new heating. A creative break, by the way, doesn't mean for me that I would not engage with photography at all. I use my time maybe to enjoy my photos. I print my image, my best image. I sell them to my clients, but I also enjoy them by myself. I go through them and I just enjoy them. It's not all about. I mean, I could think what could I do better next time when I go out on location or my next photography. But I also enjoy them, and I think it's also something that really can push your endorphins in the end. So that's really a good idea. And I also have a look at the photographs of other photographers. Also, to get inspired again, not with violence, just enjoying. It's really, really fantastic. And it boosts this wish to go out with my camera again as soon as I feel warm enough or comfortable enough let's say it in that way, as soon as I tuned up therefore. Another good idea is to go out just for a little walk every day, meeting with friends maybe, doing any activities I don't have enough time for the rest of the year. And when we break it down, I do things which boost my endorphins. And there is so much more we could do actually. Leave me a comment below what you do to get your endorphins up. And also don't forget to read all the comments of the others to get some extra tips here actually. That's really cool. And I think I see already I have to engage much more with endorphins in future. And of course, when I'm not all too tired anymore during a creative block, when I'm not all too cold anymore or whatever, when I don't feel all too uncomfortable anymore, I just grab my camera and I go out, planless maybe, without any expectations. I enjoy the moment and I enjoy landscape photography. The inspiration will definitely come back. There's even a kind of transition between being uninspired and getting inspired again. And especially in situations like that, this transition from being uninspired to getting inspired again can lead into an amazing boost of creativity. Some of my best images were taken in phases like that, to be honest. So when we boil it down now, having a creative block can even be an advantage. When it is just a little one. When it is a bigger one, I turn on my Finnish sauna and I look at my prints. So we can definitely influence our creativity to find stronger compositions out in the field. But there is much more you can do from the creative side to do easier with finding compositions and also to find stronger compositions. And I made already a video about that and I will link it here for you. My friends, I hope this video was useful. I hope you enjoyed it. If yes, please share it with your friends, give me a thumb up and don't forget to tune in next week. There will come a fantastic video as well. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.